Sam, we begin things in the National Football League. We'll do a lot of football on the show today. Some NBA to get to as well, and a little bit of college football. But we start things out with the Cowboys win last night in Monday Night Football, and I don't think any of us were surprised at the result here. By the way, I think the under came in, didn't it? 49? Was 50.5, right?
It pushed. So the closing number was 49. That's depending on when you saw the show. That's what I ended up betting the over at. So we actually got a push on the total last night.
Because when we did it yesterday, I think it was. I thought it was 49.5 or 50 when we did it yesterday on the show.
It was probably 50 when we did it yesterday. Got bet down to 49, and then the game landed 49.
There you go. So I hope you tailed me when I said it on the show yesterday, because by the time you saw it, who knows? There you go.
No, I take that back. It closed 48.5. So there were some people who cashed overs and some people who cashed unders.
Wow, depending on when you put it in. Wow, that's crazy. That's a pretty big shift from where it was when we did the show yesterday morning to where it finished. That's a big shift closing wise. Anyway, Cowboys win. Not a surprise there. How thoroughly dominant they were for 4 quarters was a bit of a surprise to me. I thought the Raiders would show up a little more at home last night. That didn't happen, though. And we'll get to the Cowboys here in a second. I got to wonder if this is a one and done for Pete Carroll. Not because I think he's a bad coach either. It's just the situation there in terms of the talent level, in terms of that offensive line and not being able to protect Geno Smith. I just don't see a scenario in which he returns to this next year.
Yeah, when they made this move in the offseason, Jason, and you and I talked about it, I said it felt like this was a franchise that was trying to lose between giving Pete Carroll the contract they did and then giving Geno Smith the starting job as easily as they did, seemingly. The funniest thing about this whole situation in Las Vegas to me is they're facing the Cleveland Browns, another 2-8 team next week, and they're more than a field goal favorite. It makes no sense. I don't know why this team would be favored against anybody right now. I understand Max Crosby's great. He played outstanding last night, and they still couldn't do anything around him. This is just to me, this is the textbook rebuilding franchise right now. And that's not to say that they're doing it rightly or wrongly, because I'm not one to do that. I haven't done enough research on the Las Vegas Raiders and how they're operating their front office. But the fact of the matter is, this team is just stuck in this rebuilding rut right now, and they're playing for draft capital. It seems like that's why they made all the offseason decisions they did.
The battle for the top overall pick right now is an intense one, with Tennessee the only one-win team. Then you've got the Raiders at 2-7, the Jets at 2-8, the Browns at 2-8, the Saints at 2-8, and the Giants at 2-9. And don't forget about the Commanders, who are 3-8, although I think it's an outside shot for them getting that top overall pick, considering Tennessee only has 1 win, and I can't see Tennessee getting more than 1 more win. But you could wind up with a whole bunch of teams. I don't think the Giants are going to finish at 2-9. I think they're probably going to steal a game or two here and there. So I'd be surprised if the Giants wound up getting the top overall pick, Sam.
Yeah, 100%. But with regard to that, you're exactly right. It's going to get crazy down the stretch, and we're going to have to get very involved in Tankathon, because the Titans, right, being the only one-loss team, they've still got to play the Cleveland Browns, one of the 2-loss teams, and the New Orleans Saints, another one of the 2-loss teams. So there are going to be as many head-to-head matchups as there are going to be down the stretch to determine who gets into the playoffs. There may be just about as many to determine who gets the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft.
Yes, that is true. Let's talk about the Cowboys, who improved to 4-5-1 on the season. And, if it wasn't for the schedule they had, they got a brutal schedule over the final, 7 weeks of the season, 6 weeks of the season, Sam. If not for that, I'd give them, at least a puncher's chance to try and steal a wild card spot. But, there's just no shot. There's no shot at all right now. When you sort of stack it up here, because I said this last night, we did a SportsWrap short on this after the game, it's probably going to take 10, 11. Go and look right now at what it's going to take to make the playoffs as a wild card. Seattle 7-3, Green Bay 6-3-1, San Francisco 7-4. It's going to take 10 or 11 wins just to make the playoffs in the NFC, Sam.
Yeah, the NFC East will have one playoff team, and it will be the winner of that division, and that will be the Philadelphia Eagles. The best case scenario over the next 7 games for the Dallas Cowboys is 3-4, and that's being incredibly generous.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at 2-5. So 3-4, add that to what they've got now. You're finishing 7-9-1.
Yeah.
That's I don't know. You got to get rid of everybody. You have to.
What do you mean get rid of everybody? Who are you going to get rid of? They're not getting rid of Brian Schottenheimer.
No, you have to reevaluate the Dak Prescott experience.
Nah.
I mean, which
Dak's
they won't because Jerry Jones still owns the team.
Dak's not the problem. The problem is the guy you just mentioned. That's the problem. And that's not going to change. And as long as that's not going to change, it doesn't matter what you do at the quarterback position or any other position for that matter, because you have a borderline madman running the organization right now in Jerry Jones. That's the problem. We all know that by now.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but as long as he continues to make these, flamboyant decisions just to, keep his team in the national spotlight for another 2 or 3 weeks, it's just this is what the Cowboys are going to be. We know what they're going to be. They're going to be a 7-9-1 football team every single year.
Yeah. They're going to be 8-9 wins. That's sort of what you're looking at. Although they did look a little bit better on the defensive side last night, but you can never tell how much of that is them versus how much. I get it. I get it. I absolutely get it. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. We'll see what it looks like. When they get back out there. But it was an emotional night for them, and we saw Brian Schottenheimer after the game sort of talking to his troops and talking to his team. And I can't even imagine what this stretch of the last couple of weeks has been like for the guys in that locker room, going through what they have. They'll get the Eagles next week, then the Chiefs on Thanksgiving, 4 days later. Then the Lions. Back to reality for the Cowboys. All right, we're going to come back. We got some NFL weekend leftovers to get to. Can't wait to do that. James Franklin has a new coaching job. We'll get to that later, too. We welcome you back on this Tuesday. Coming up in 10 minutes, James Franklin got a new gig already. Here for a good time, not a long time. I keep saying it. Talk about that coming up. Lots of NFL to talk about. Sam and I was dying to talk about this yesterday on the show, Sam. As we get into our NFL weekend leftovers. Everybody loves leftovers. I was dying to talk about this on the show yesterday, so let's dig into it. We were talking about during one of the breaks, as we were going through different quarterbacks around the league. And I have always maintained that the true mark of an MVP isn't what you do when you're on the field with them. It's what happens when they're not on the field. And I could go through various sports over the years where I've noted this, that you really get the sense of who an MVP is when they're not on the field versus or court or ice or whatever it would be, versus when they're on the field. And I had narrowed it down yesterday to a couple of guys in the NFL, a couple of quarterbacks in the NFL, that if you take them off their team, and what brought this up was Aaron Rodgers getting injured over the weekend and breaking or fracturing his non-throwing wrist. And I said to myself, what happens to that team if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt? Oh my God, they went and got him in the offseason, the wheels fall off. No, they were still really good in that game offensively with Mason Rudolph. And wound up getting a win anyway. And he was hurt in the third quarter, and the game was kind of out of hand at that point anyway. But it got me to thinking, which quarterbacks are truly indisposable, that if they go down, the season just falls apart for those teams? And I came up with two that really hit me off the top of my head. And it's, again, the mark of why these guys have been MVPs in the league. Josh Allen is a no-brainer to me. I said, if you take Josh Allen off the Bills, they're a 5-win team. If you do the same, and the other one I pointed to was Lamar Jackson. And I know you pointed out that they got to win with Snoop Huntley, but at the end of the day, if you tell them they got Snoop Huntley on the field for an entire 17-game season, that's probably a 5 or 6 win team. And so I started to ask you, and we started to toss it around during one of the breaks yesterday, which is always great when we do the show during the break and the audience doesn't get to see it. Is what teams could we look at in the NFL where we would say if you take the starting quarterback off the field, it's curtains, it's over. The one that comes to mind for me, if we were going to point to another one, what would be the one you would point to if we took the starting quarterback off the team? Yeah,
ready?
Yeah.
Bryce Young. It's Bryce Young. Bryce Young, as much as people will sit there and scream at their TVs right now and say, he's the Carolina Panthers quarterback, Bryce Young has the most game-winning drives of any quarterback in the NFL since 2023. More than Josh Allen, more than Patrick Mahomes. He's got more in his career than Joe Burrow has in his career. Bryce Young is sneaky one of the most clutch quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And the Carolina Panthers are above 500, a place they certainly would not be without the play of their quarterback. So yes, Jason, Bryce Young is a quarterback who would have a team crumbling around him if he weren't standing in the middle of it. Bryce Young is who I'm going with. The Panthers would not be any semblance of what they are now without the play that they've gotten out of their quarterback this year.
You mean Andy Dalton couldn't do what Bryce Young... I can't even get through this sentence with a straight face.
I know.
6-5. 6-5 on the season is Carolina, and very much in the mix for that NFC South right now. With Tampa Bay at 6-4, it is, and they basically stole one in Atlanta. They gave it up, and then they came back and stole one in Atlanta. Game-winning drive, and Bryce threw for almost 500 yards in that game, something astronomical like that. And that just goes to show you. Not to deviate too far from what I really wanted to talk about here, but I will for a moment. It just goes to show you how often we talk about quarterbacks in year one and year two. We give up on guys. I mean, the die had been cast on Bryce Young after year one. The idea that he just wasn't going to be it. He wasn't going to be able to be that guy. Not only has he been that guy, but as you pointed out, he's been clutch. And that just takes you back to, where this guy came from. What he did at Alabama, playing in all those big games, every game being sort of a must-win when you play it in Alabama, that you can't afford to lose more than one game in a season. Yeah. What bringing that to the NFL means for a guy. I give Bryce Young a ton of credit for what he's done. Can we think of another guy? We tossed around the idea of Baker Mayfield. If you took Baker Mayfield off Tampa Bay right now, is Tampa Bay 6-4? No.
That's the thing. But I slept on it, and that defense is so good, Jason. They would be able to keep them around in games just long enough for those weapons, because all they would need, not saying that this is what Baker Mayfield is, but in an ideal world, I think the Buccaneers could survive with a game manager and get to 9 or 10 or even 11 wins in a weaker division when we're talking about the relativity of the NFL. Baker Mayfield is one that I'm still on the fence about, but one that I said to you yesterday in the break, maybe not necessarily for his play on the field, but definitely for what he does in the locker room for that team, what just we can tell based on what gets out, has got to be Jalen Hurts. I mean, the reigning defending Super Bowl MVP. This isn't really that hard of an answer. This isn't some steaming hot take I'm giving you. But Jalen Hurts has managed this situation with the Eagles offense incredibly well this year. He's getting them to wins. He's somehow keeping everybody on the team. I know, and the run game has let them down maybe more than it ever has in his career this year specifically. Jalen Hurts is a guy who has definitely kind of kept the lid on that entire Philadelphia Eagles team, and I don't think gets enough credit for doing so.
I'll give you another one, and you're going to disagree with me on this because I know how you feel about him. Justin Herbert. Look at what happens every time Justin Herbert gets hurt. Any year you take Justin Herbert off the field for that team, and they crumble. By the way, they're 3-0 in the division right now. The only unbeaten in that division. Just keep that in mind when we and look, I get it. They're still 2 back of Denver in the AFC West, but they're 3-0 in the division right now. Not a lot of undefeated by the team. Not a lot of undefeated teams in division.
Here's the thing about Justin Herbert, right? And I get it. You think they'd get blown out if he didn't show up. They got blown out, and he did show up against a bad team this past weekend, Jason.
James Franklin is a new job. Did he jump too quickly for this job at Virginia Tech? I want to talk about it as we continue on this Tuesday Sports Wrap. Welcome back inside the Sports Wrap studios on this Tuesday. Good to have you with us. Coming up in 10 minutes, some more NFL weekend leftovers. Some NBA to get to later in the show as well. Can you be the face of the NBA if you can't stay on the court because you're always hurt? We'll get to that. Plus a funny story from Draymond Green that I want to get to as well. But Sam Yarnell, we continue the conversation in football, and in this case, the collegiate ranks, with the news that came down yesterday, and not a shock. Of course, right after we finished putting the show to bed yesterday, it breaks that James Franklin is going to be the new head coach at the fine university that is Virginia Tech, and he'll take over that Hokies program. And yeah, I said this yesterday when we had our friend Bill Bender on the show, and I'll reiterate it again. I think he's there for a good time, not a long time, Sam. I don't think James Franklin, is long for that job if he has success, if he can have success there. And I know some people have argued with me and said, "Oh, look, Kurt Cignetti at Indiana, and see, he didn't leave." And I would say, don't use the one-off to try and create the rule. James Franklin's still young enough that I don't think this is his last coaching job. This is not his forever home. If he could have success at Virginia Tech, but realize within a few years that he's not going to be able to win a national championship at a place like Virginia Tech, I think he's looking for greener pastures. And by the way, this is not an indictment on him. I'm just trying to prepare fans in Blacksburg for what is likely to take place with this kind of job for James Franklin. That's why it surprises me that he jumped so fast. He didn't have to. There's going to be coaching. These coaching cycles now are going to be crazy in the era of NIL. And with the lack of patience that some of these schools are going to have, you're going to have jobs opening up all the time. I don't know why he felt the need. And I get it. He's a coach at heart. And he talked about this when he was on ESPN, how this is in his blood and how much he loves doing this. But to me, I felt like he may have jumped too quickly at this, Sam.
Well, I think, and Bill kind of mentioned this yesterday, we did talk to him lightly about it with the hopes that it would come to fruition. But when you're talking about Virginia Tech, this is a program that is somewhat rooted in tradition at this point. And when you look at their roster, especially over the last couple of years, they have had the talent. It has been the coaching that's fallen short, especially in the Brent Pry era, right? They had Kyron Drones, who at one point had Heisman hopes going into a couple of seasons ago. Like, this is a team that's been able to recruit and bring in talent because, like Bill Bender said to us, they are in a very talent-rich part of the country. There's very good high school football in Southwest Virginia. I know, I grew up playing against them. They're pretty tough down there. James Franklin is very familiar with this part of the country. He grew up or spent a lot of time in this part of the country, lives in this part of the country in the off season. This is a guy who is having a little bit of a homecoming to a program that needs to be built, a program that hasn't felt 8 wins in 5 years. This is a program that needs to get back to just winning somewhat in a competitive ACC, in an ACC that they could eventually take over. What have we talked about for so many weeks on this show? It's how open this conference remains despite all the NIL money that seems to have flooded into it. I actually love this hire for Virginia Tech, and I think that James Franklin, as you saw him do at Penn State when they really needed it, is a guy who can come in and build a program and recruit from the ground up and build a 22-man team of recruits that love their coach. That is what matters in this new day and age of college football. With a program like Virginia Tech, it feels like a blank canvas, and I'm excited to see what James Franklin paints.
But are they going to open up their pocketbooks? Because that also becomes part of the question now. If you're bringing in James Franklin and you're going to go pay him all this money, and they've negotiated the buyout with Penn State and all that stuff, this means you also have to open up the checkbook when it comes to bringing in players. I mean, that's the era now of college football that we live in. And you have to convince those players to stay in Virginia as opposed to some of the hot spots around the country where they're going to be getting lured to. If I'm a coach who's going into a kid's room in Virginia to try and convince them to come and play at my school versus Virginia Tech, I say, well, look, this guy never won the big one. This guy can. You want to go play for this guy? I mean, look, I'll make the argument. I'll be the guy going in the. I'll be the guy sitting in your kitchen table right now, and I'll say, you want to go play for James Franklin? Yeah, he had a nice winning percentage. Couldn't win the big one. Wouldn't you rather come and play for us with our coach who can win, or our school or our program that can win? You want to play in the SEC and be on this TV network versus the ACC where you're here and there and everywhere? I'm just saying. I mean, there's going to be, to think it's a foregone conclusion that James Franklin walks into Virginia Tech and this thing, just because the ACC is wide open, is fixed within a year or two. I think it's a fool's errand to think that he just walks in there and this thing gets fixed instantly, Sam.
Well, I think that any program that you're expecting to be fixed from, 3 consecutive 6 or fewer win seasons, you're expecting them to instantly be a conference contender. That's mistaken. That'd be mistaken for anybody. But this is a guy who over the next 4-5 years, I think could build this program. And while you're right about him not being able to win the big one, the counter to that is there are 2, maybe it's just 1 active coaches in all of the NCAA that have more former players playing in the NFL right now. That'll get a lot of kids in Virginia to come to your school.
Yeah, it's the John Calipari thing. Hey,
right, exactly.
We're gonna put you at the next level and put you in a position to succeed at the next level. There's still a lot of coaching vacancies open. Like I said, I'm just surprised he jumped at this one. And again, maybe it is the familiarity that you talk about, with that area and what that will mean. And I also am curious to see how involved he gets in the program between now and the end of the season. What is he doing for the rest of the season? That's what I'm kind of interested to see too. What does he do? They're gonna have this press conference introducing him on Wednesday, and then what? Brent Fry just, coaches the team here for the rest of the season. And then James Franklin sort of, sits over there and watches them. Like, I'm curious to see what that dynamic is like, because we don't often see, it is rare to see a coaching hiring at this stage of the season for a team that already has an interim head coach. There's still, a lot of games left to be played, or a few games left to be played, Sam.
Yeah, it's
gonna be weird.
Part of this new world that we live in.
Gonna be a weird dynamic there. Brent Pry was fired in September. I said Brent Pry was who he's replacing. Ultimately, he is. See what happens at Virginia Tech. James Franklin, the new head coach. We're coming back. Coming up in 10 minutes, some NBA. He is amazing to watch when he's on the floor. And the problem is, he's not going to be on the floor for a few weeks. And we've said that now in each of his first 3 years in the league for some substantial period of time. I'll get to that coming up. Also, a funny Draymond Green story to tell you about as well. Sam, some more NFL weekend leftovers. I want to see how much we can run through and how fast we can run through it here from everything that took place in Week 11. And start right at the beginning with Miami winning again. Now 16-13, the final against Washington in overtime. And the Dolphins at 4-7, as much as we talk about what it's going to take to get into the postseason in the NFC, where it could be 10 or 11 wins, that ultimately is what it takes to get in the NFC. In the AFC, it's a much different story, Sam. We're 6-4 right now. You've got a couple of 4-loss teams there with the Chargers and Jaguars. And what we've seen at times from the Chargers this year doesn't necessarily instill a ton of confidence in me. Same for the Jaguars. The Texans at 5-5, the Chiefs at 5-5, the Ravens at 5-5, and then there are the Dolphins at 4-7, resurrecting their season here over the last couple of weeks, certainly keeping Mike McDaniel in play when you talk about being able to potentially keep his job there, Sam, with the Dolphins getting the win in Madrid.
Yeah, the question in the AFC is going to come down to, can one of or both of the Chiefs and Ravens jump up into those two slots? The Ravens obviously into the Steelers spot, because only one team from the AFC North is going to make the playoffs.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't necessarily say that. Steelers could be a wild card team. Could be a wild card team.
Their quarterback has a broken wrist.
But he's not. He doesn't need that wrist. He doesn't need that wrist.
Regardless, he's out this week. So then you're still okay. Either way, I think that there will be one AFC North playoff team. It will probably be the Baltimore Ravens. The question then becomes, can the Chiefs play better than the Jaguars or the Chargers down the stretch? One game better than the Jaguars or 2 games better than the Chargers down the stretch. And I don't know. I understand why Vegas is booking it the way they are. They have the Chiefs it's like a plus 170 for the Chiefs to miss the playoffs. I totally understand it. It is not out of the question that this team, that may just be too big of a hurdle for them to leap over.
It certainly might be. By the way, the schedule for the Steelers the rest of the way: at the Bears, home for the Bills; at the Ravens, home for the Dolphins; at the Lions; at the Browns, home for the Ravens. Not an easy schedule. But again, it's not. But again, they're already at 6. Is 9 wins going to be a wild card team in the AFC? Can I find 3 more wins on that schedule? Bears is a toss-up, even with Mason Rudolph. The Dolphins is a winnable game. The Browns is a winnable game. That gets you to 9. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's a foregone conclusion. I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily completely rule them out. As for the Dolphins at 4-7, and just looking at their schedule real quick here, the Dolphins have the Saints, 5 wins, the Jets, 6 wins, at the Steelers, toss-up, home for the Bengals, toss-up, maybe winnable, depending on whether Joe Burrow's back or not.
Dolphins at Steelers on December 15th, Monday Night Football is not a toss-up.
If it's Mason Rudolph?
The Steelers will still win 17-0. The Tua Tagovailoa might throw for negative yards in that game.
Then they have the Bengals, then the Buccaneers, then the Patriots. So I mean, they got to get to 9. Let's say 9 is the number to be in tiebreakers, right? Saints is 5, Jets is 6, Bengals is 7. Yeah, it's going to be hard to get to 9. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, it's not.
I just talked
they're
through
not
it.
getting to 9. They'll be lucky to get to 6.
It'll be hard.
They'll be lucky.
It'll be hard. It's going to be hard to get to 9. The math ain't mathin' on that one. What the hell happened to the Chargers this weekend? My God, did they get smoked in Jacksonville? I didn't see that. Of all the most shocking things we saw this weekend, that was the one I did not see coming, Sam.
Yeah, you want to tell me more about how the Chargers offensive line injuries don't matter, as seemingly everyone on the internet thought going into this week? This is exactly what the Chargers are going to be for the rest of the season, as long as they don't have their good offensive linemen. This is a team, a Jim Harbaugh team, right? A classic Jim Harbaugh team built around the trenches. And when they don't have one of them, they're not going to have a lot of anything, as they didn't in this game. It was tough to watch. I didn't watch a lot of it because it was such a blowout.
We touched on it briefly yesterday, but Houston is the team I do not want to play in the postseason. If that team everybody's like, oh, nobody wants the Chiefs to get in. No, I don't want Houston to get in, because they will be in any game in the postseason, no matter who they're playing, because that defense is that good, Sam.
They were losing to the Titans at halftime.
Yeah.
Like, I get it, and I agree with you, and I have been a staunch supporter of this defense all season long. They were losing to the Titans at halftime. Going into Thursday Night Football is going to be a very interesting breakdown for me as the Bills travel to Houston. Houston coming off this aforementioned game. Again, can't emphasize this enough, where they were losing to the Titans at halftime. And now I think they're only getting 3.5 points against the Bills. Maybe it's 5.5.
Yeah.
It's 5.5. This is going to be a tough one to break down on Thursday. I'm with you, but I'm confused about the Texans.
If the playoffs started today, by the way, the Detroit Lions are not in them. Just think
Neither
that
are the
over for a
Chiefs.
second. I know. But the 49ers would be. Kyle Shanahan doing his best coaching job since getting to the Bay Area. We're back with NBA next. We'll wrap it up with some odds and ends 10 minutes from now. Let's talk about the association. Big news there, literally and figuratively. The NBA's 7'5" alien, the great Victor Wembanyama, is going to miss it. Sounds like a few weeks, according to Shams Charania over at ESPN, with a calf strain. And look, teams are always going to baby these calf strains, given what they can ultimately lead to. The Achilles injuries that we've seen over the last couple of seasons, certainly front and center. So Wemby's going to be out for a few weeks. But again, we're now in year 3 of Victor Wembanyama, Sam. And in year 3 of Victor Wembanyama, we're again talking about him missing significant time because of an injury. Last year it was the blood clot, which is a scary thing. I forget what it was in year 1, but they shut him down early. There was another injury that they shut him down with before the end of the year. In year 1, he missed significant time. And now you're talking about him missing significant time again here in year 3. And for somebody that is so vital, I mean, go and look at the splits. Now, some of that might change a little with De'Aaron Fox being back. But go and look at the splits for that team with him on the floor and him off the floor. The way teams attack the paint when he's off the floor, the way teams stay completely away. It's a no-fly zone when he's on the court. They can't afford to have him gone for huge stretches of time in a Western Conference where all of these teams are going to cannibalize each other, Sam.
Yeah, it was like a hip and then an ankle, and then that ankle just never really got better in his first year was the injury you're thinking of. But Jason, his injury history goes back even before that. In France, he had trouble staying on the court, right? And that was the one questionable part of the entire scouting report with this unicorn basketball player, right? Is he going to be able to stay healthy? This is a guy who had that it was like a shoulder injury like the year before he came over, and then I think he broke his finger and missed significant time that same season. So this is a guy who has had injury history throughout the course of his career, but from a Spurs perspective, this is tough in a Western Conference, right, that we've seen has gotten very competitive. While we know there's a lot of cream at the top, there's no doubt about that in the Oklahoma City Thunder and then the Denver Nuggets right below them. It's pretty competitive below that in the Western Conference. And, there's not necessarily odds-wise, right, in any semblance that any other team could win. But I think that there's a thought, and there's at least been a thought between you and me that, hey, once we get into the playoffs in the West, especially with what Oklahoma City's had to do over the course of the last 2 years, it may be anybody's conference. There may be, a shot for a couple of shocking upsets in that Western Conference side of the bracket. So this is going to be very interesting to see how they manage it down the stretch, how their seeding is impacted by it. And I didn't even mention the NBA Cup. This pretty much knocks them out of the NBA Cup.
9-4 right now, by the way. San Antonio through the first 13 games. If we assume they play 9 games over the first 3 weeks, what's their record going to be when he comes back? If you go 4-5, 5-4, you're probably thrilled.
Thrilled.
Yeah.
But it's possible with the guard play that this team has gotten, right, between De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle. And, they've got, Devin Vassell can be a wing now. He can stretch out a little bit more with that size that Kurt Helin has talked about on this show. But, man, 3-6, even I'd be okay with 3-6. 2-7, 1-8. That's when you got to kind of be like, all right, we really need Wemby back, and we got to start winning as soon as he comes back.
Luke Cornett, Kelly Olynyk, Bismack Biyombo.
Right.
Those are going to be some of the names filling the space. They went out and spent a lot of money on Cornett in the offseason. All right, funny story. I got to get to this. If you didn't see it over the weekend, Spurs fell to the Warriors in a great game on, I don't know if it was Friday night or Saturday night, those two teams played. In that game, there was an incident on the court with Draymond Green, shocking, and Victor Wembanyama. For people who didn't see it, here's the dunk. With Wemby throwing one down on Draymond Green, which is, I mean, really, that's sort of like Arch Manning dancing over a guy from Sam Houston State after scoring a touchdown. It's like you're a foot taller than Draymond Green. I mean, I don't know if I'd go that crazy, but what led up to it is the more interesting story. Listen to Draymond Green explain the story of the trash talk that was taking place between the two.
You scared of me. He's like, what? Hey. Scared. All right, watch this. I had the chance to battle with the big fella, Wemby. We had our moment. You know, I know everybody spoke about the dunk. Right before the dunk, I blocked his shot. When I blocked his shot, I looked at him, gave him a crazy look, like, yeah. And he was like, oh, what? You too small. So I walk up to him. I said, you little. You too little. He's like, what? I'm too little. All right. I said, you scared of me. He's like, what? I ain't scared. All right, watch this. That whole conversation happened walking from one block to the other block, and then we start fighting for position. Everything else just happened in slow motion. And he does this spin, but when he spin, he was like still in place. He took one step and he's in front of the rim, catching the lob with the left. I thought I could get the lob when I saw it go up. I had no chance at getting it. Thought Jimmy could get the lob from the backside. He had no chance at getting it. The only person that had a chance to get the lob was the guy who caught the lob, Wemby. Right after I told him, you scared of me.
It's great. That's just great. And for all the things I say about Draymond, by the way, he's a terrific storyteller. He's going to have a phenomenal career. Like he will be, you know what's going to happen? He's going to replace Barkley. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, he's going to replace Barkley.
That was my thought, too. He has a very inside the NBA style of being able to tell that kind of players-only story. He will fit very well in a broadcast studio one day. Yep. The numbers still aren't there, Draymond. They're still not.
Odds and ends are right around the corner. Another record for Alex Ovechkin and a whole bunch more. Don't go anywhere. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Tomorrow on the show, Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. One of my best friends in this industry. Why? Because I bowled in a tournament this weekend out in Long Beach, California. Did pretty good. Finished 6th in my division. And Kurt actually came out, to my surprise and delight, and supported me. Had the pom-poms going and everything. It was great. So thanks to Kurt Heelan for dropping by. He'll be on the show tomorrow. We'll talk some NBA with him. Who knows who else may join us on tomorrow's program. Couple of reminders before we go. Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the podcast, available on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show Monday through Friday. It is there for you. 45 minutes, perfect while you're driving to work, on the treadmill, wherever you may be. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Look, if you are not subscribed yet, you don't know what you're missing. We have the show there Monday through Friday, commercial-free, 45 minutes. Boom. We also have Sports Wrap Shorts, which if you have not seen them yet, make sure to go and subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Sports Wrap Shorts, they're usually about a minute long. They're quick. You can get to them whenever a story breaks, a game ends that has something of consequence going on in it. We have Sports Wrap Shorts there for you. Sports Wrap Shorts also available on our TikTok channel. That would be Sports Wrap Jason Page. And our Instagram, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, on this Wednesday, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell. Let's start with Alex Ovechkin, who breaks another record. His 442nd goal inside the Capitals Arena, which right now is named Capital One Arena, appropriately enough. He also passes Gordie Howe for the most regular season goals scored at a single venue in NHL history, Sam Yarnell, with goal number 442, as the Capitals end a 2-game skid to try and gain some traction in the standings. Goal 903 for Alex Ovechkin, Sam Yarnell.
Yeah, this is going to be a thing this season. Like every 3 or 5 goals he scores, there's going to be some new record that he breaks. And it's awesome. It's great. It's super cool that we are getting to witness this history, but just be ready for this to be a regular occurrence. It's going to happen once every couple weeks.
Listen, I don't think he's going to get to 1,000, but the thought's got to cross his mind.
I mean,
Dennis doesn't think Dennis Bernstein, who's our hockey guy, who comes on the show quite a bit. Dennis doesn't think he's going to want to play that long. It'd probably take not next year, but a little bit into the following season if he's healthy.
And I believe his contract only runs through next year. It would be interesting to see, though, if he gets to 970 by the end of next year, which is, I believe, when his contract ends. If he's like 30 goals away and he's, the contract is coming up, I wouldn't write it off for, the Russian machine that never breaks to absolutely come back for one final swan song, try to put 30 biscuits in the basket and get to 1,000.
To tennis, Carlos Alcaraz, one of his big bucket list items is to win the Davis Cup for Spain. It's not going to happen this year. The top-ranked player in the world said he's heartbroken to withdraw from the Davis Cup finals in Italy because of a hamstring injury. The decision made by doctors, ultimately, they told him, don't play. He said, I have an edema in my... Edema? Isn't that the singer? I'm so sorry to announce I won't be able to play for Spain in the Davis Cup in Bologna? It is pronounced Bologna, right? Not bologna, like the food. It's Bologna. I have an edema in my right hamstring, and the medical recommendation is not to compete. So, Carlos Alcaraz going to shut it down there at the Davis Cup Center.
Yeah, why are we playing outdoor tennis in November? This was my first thought when I saw this. This makes no sense in the northern hemisphere to be playing outdoor tennis in November.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Yeah, no love lost here. Why is this tournament going on right now? Makes no sense.
That's a very good point.
First want to tell you, I don't get how any of that stuff works. But it's just crazy to me that he was standing up, under his own power. That's great. Good for Cam Scattaboo. That's football tough.
The incredible powers of healing. See what he looks like next year on the field for the Giants. Or in a WWE ring. You never know. It's going to do it for us. Again, Kurt Heelan on the show tomorrow. Thanks to all of you for watching. Thanks to you, Sam, as always. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here on Wednesday for an all-new edition of Sports Wrap. Have a good one. Hi there, I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got Sports Wrap shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.